Megan Smith Branch is Chief Operating and Product Officer for CertNexus, a global emerging tech certification company based in Rochester, New York. Megan oversees the development, delivery, and product engagement of CertNexus emerging technology certification solutions in cybersecurity, IoT, AI, data ethics, and data science. Her key objective is to create, promote, and maintain high stakes certifications within emerging technologies so that organizations can accelerate technology initiatives through the building and validation of knowledge and skills. Megan sits on board of the California Technology Council, is a member of the IoT Talent Consortium and Cybersecurity Credentials Collaborative, NICE community group, and hold a certification as a certified ethical emerging technologist as well as credentials in emerging tech and public speaking. Attendees, thank you for attending our conference. As a reminder to all of you, this conference is being recorded. We will have QA at the end of the presentation. Please use the QA tool if you have a question for the speaker. The stage is all yours, Megan. You can now share your content and unmute yourself. Once again, thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Sharish. It's a joy to be here today as I share my content with you. And thank you so much for that amazing introduction that you gave me. I really appreciate, and Siddiq, it was great to join your presentation as well. So I'm excited to be here to talk to you about experiential learning in the areas of emerging technology, in particular with the future of work. So I want to confirm with everyone that you can see my screen, Navigating the Future of Work with Global Upskilling for Emerging Technologies. Fantastic. And as I move forward to this, I know that Sharish did a great job introducing me. I do want to once again talk a little bit, and I have my LinkedIn contact information up on the screen in case anyone wants to contact me after today's session or to just share information and exchange ideas. I do think that the most important thing with experiential learning is continuous learning. And I know that I have learned the most from my peers and in the interactions with some of the amazing subject matter experts that we get to work with here at CertNexus. My role at CertNexus is to develop certification programs, which includes not only training, but also the exams that the training prepares you for to validate the skills within emerging tech. And emerging tech really is the future. So let's level set a little bit and talk about what is the future of work. What exactly are we talking about here when we talk about the future of work? Well, if we take a look here, you often hear this term digital transformation, and digital transformation is something that we hear about in terms of articles that we read and journeys that we're trying to take, advancing our skills in terms of a workforce. But simply put, when we take a look at the definition here on the screen, it is really just adopting digital technology, and that is to make business processes or manual processes easier to do, and not only that, to extract value out of what we're doing and out of the people that we have on our team. And really, we cannot do work without the people. And I know today has been all about how do we advance the learning for the people within our organizations and try to adapt our skills to this newer digital technology. And digital technology can be an array of different things. You know, we used to talk about it in terms of information technology, but in the space that we are talking about right now, we're talking about all of the technology that can help us manage data, maybe create a digital twin of all of the systems that we currently have, to help us monitor, prevent, and secure the data that we have, and also derive additional value for our organizations. So if this is the future of work, are we in the future right now? Is this something that we are in the middle of the crystal ball? Well, I like to talk about how we got here. And when we hear the term digital transformation, we often also align it with something we call the fourth industrial revolution. For those history and tech history junkies out there, you'll be very familiar with what you see on the screen here. But there are certain technologies that have enabled this fourth industrial revolution that allows us to move beyond just predictive capacity to adaptability. So as you can see, we have everything from data analytics, cloud computing, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, all the way up to things like 3D printing, robotics and automation, and also wireless technology. So it really is sort of the coming together of all of these things. And in addition to what you see on the screen, there's some other things that we'd like to take into account. First of all, probably all of us, hopefully you're not doing it right now, are holding one of the most powerful computers in our hands or wearing it on our wrist. And miniaturization is really sort of that first step in how we got to the fourth industrial revolution and how we're able to be where we are today. So we carry computers in our pockets, right? Remember that first computer took up about 1,800 square feet of warehouse space and weighed more than 25 tons. And at that point, it could execute around 5,000 instructions per second, as opposed to our iPhones, which if you're like me and you have a smaller iPhone, it weighs in at just under 5 ounces and can process 25 billion, that's with a B, instructions per second. So really just the ability to carry computers in our pocket and the miniaturization of all of the technology that goes into it, and our ability to connect, right? To wirelessly connect through devices, through the development of technologies such as cellular, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and of course the good old RFID. And we can do this because we also have advanced power sources, right? These things can operate on a very small amount of electrical energy. We have things like rechargeable batteries, right? We have the ability to harvest energy from the surrounding environment, which enables us to collect data in areas that we couldn't before. So think about those remote locations where we're collecting data, because we have the ability to utilize things like cellular data, even providing access to power through things like balloons and drones. And it also, the cost of these things, right? The cost of these things has gone down. Now, recently, we've seen that cost go up because of supply chain demand, but for the most part, we're seeing very inexpensive processors, inexpensive sensors, the relatively inexpensive components that enable the expansion of these small, capable devices that allow us to begin to measure the environment around us, process data, and then respond accordingly. And of course, the idea that not only are we just an arm's length away with our smartphones and smartwatches that have interfaces that allow us to navigate everything from our heart rate to even some manufacturing devices, plants, and even servers from afar, but also this idea of cloud-based computing. The idea that we can delegate data collection and analysis, and also the business processes around it of subscription models, right? Think about 10 years ago, the idea of having subscription services really was something new and innovative. And now that's how we operate as a business. So all of this together has brought us to where we are now and has had an impact on all of the emerging technologies that we at CertNexus deal with. So now we understand how we got here. Let's talk about what really matters to many of us, and that is the economic impact, right? So we have transformed from our most valuable resource being oil to being data. Think about it now, that image in the lower right-hand corner. 7 of the 10 most valuable companies in the world are built on tying human behavior, whether it's shopping or whether it's browsing, back to data. It's no longer oil. There's a great book that talks about the history of this exchange of economic impact. It talks about how we used to value salt, right? And then oil became salt. Now data is becoming oil. So we're working in this global digital ecosystem where we gather data through devices and sensors, and then we organize it through the art of data science, and then we exchange it and we learn from it. And along the way, we have to protect all of this accumulated information. And so that really narrows our focus and talks about our focus in terms of how we define emerging tech. So when we talk about the economic impact, it's proportional to the data, the collection of it, the ability to derive value from it, and move just beyond automation of it to extracting value. Extracting the type of value that we could do as humans, but that machines allow us to find new ways of value and new ways to look at data and learn in a speed that has not been seen before. So this is how I like to talk about how we got to the future of work. And sometimes when we talk about, emerging tech, and we talk about these terms like artificial intelligence and data science and machine learning, it is very intimidating. And we think, I don't know, I'm a smaller organization, or my customers are a smaller organization. They're really not that innovative. So what I like to do is to talk about, how does this relate to what we know, or what our customers know, and what our vendors know? And the idea is this concept of what we call transactional technology. And transactional technology is that first step, maybe the second step or the third step in an organization's digital transformation. Now remember, if we go back to the definition of digital transformation, it's just using digital technologies to replace something that was done manually, or to improve something that we did before. So when we look at something like data science, and we look at, how data science uses transactional tech, we're looking at how they build up their infrastructure, things like cloud technology, how they're structuring their databases, how they are managing this term of big data. And big data can include not just the volume of data, but the volatility and the sources of where it comes from. So how do we store this? Where are we structuring it? Now think to your customers or your own organization right now, and you look at some of the technologies that I have circled in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And really, these are not unfamiliar technologies. These are things that we use every day. And if you think that data science is the only one, forget it, because the Internet of Things also uses transactional tech, right? So we look at the platforms that are leveraging and storing this data and processing the data as it goes from the collection to the manipulation, back to the visualization of the data. That is the ecosystem, a very rudimentary definition of the ecosystem of IoT. Right. So, and then we look at cybersecurity, which people don't think of as emerging tech anymore. But when we talk about how cybersecurity evolves as a practice and some of the the transactional technologies that it is using, and we look at all of these different areas, whether it is security management or infrastructure security, endpoint security, now you're starting to become a little bit more familiar and thinking, wow, if this is what is transitioning us from where we were before into emerging technologies, we're already there. Most organizations are. The thing is that they're leveraging the services and that live on the platforms and the subscriptions that they have. And are they getting the most value out of them? Are they really deriving the value from what is now the new oil, which is data? And what we know is that 95% of businesses have this, what we call unstructured data. Now, when we talk about data and we talk about big data, we talk about it can be organized in a nice SQL database. But when we talk about unstructured data, we're talking about everything from emails to video files, to audio files, to web data, right? All of that customer information that lives in, things like Salesforce and our CRMs. And the thing that is universal about this is that it's not just one type of business that's dealing with data and unstructured data. It is all of the different industries that you see here. Everything from healthcare to energy to government. This is really what Forbes is saying is this market share by these different verticals. And this is already 2 years old. Now, if I look at data that is a little bit newer, it really doesn't change that much. We're seeing a little bit more of a shift on energy and into healthcare, but for the most part, it still looks about the same. And we're still seeing the amount of unstructured data about the same. And the reason is because the collection of data is so rapid. Whether we are collecting it through everything from a survey to an IoT device, the amount of data that we are collecting and having to manage, and therefore has potential value to us, is so important. But when we talk about data and we talk about how we look at emerging technology around data, the one thing that we can't forget around this emerging field is data ethics. And this is very near and dear to my heart. I'm very proud to say that I hold a certification as a certified emerging ethical technologist, which is becoming more and more important. And if we look at organizations on the right-hand side that are higher growth, their understanding of how important ethics in treating data, and not just privacy. I want to be very clear that data ethics includes data privacy, but is expansive of so much more, because it's about taking not just securing and keeping that data private, but it's how do we ask machines to work within our data sets and really replicate what is ethically valuable to us. Right? So if within a society, it is very important that we be humane, right? Towards all people. How do we teach that to a machine? How do we make sure that the algorithms that we're teaching the machines to learn from the data are aware of these considerations? And then again, what ethical principles are most important, because we can't choose them all, right? So we often talk in many of our certification programs around, when we talk about ethics, we put it into the context of ethical principles that are based in philosophy, right? So we look at that idea of, you have to make a decision about if a train is speeding down a track and you have the opportunity to injure one person or injure many people, what is more valuable, right? And it may be the number, but what if that one person is a head of state versus a group of school children? So we talk about what are the values and how do we then take that and apply it to something like an algorithm, so that we teach machines that what we value as a society needs to be into consideration when they're deriving value from the data that we give them. It's not, and it also has to do with data selection and also maintenance and destruction as well of that data. So these are the things that really take us to why emerging tech is becoming so important, and to not only organizations, but how it relates to their digital transformation journey. And as we know, we want to talk about now who is going to be responsible for this. So that's really where the future of work comes in, because we need to have a workforce of within organizations that can understand, analyze, and manipulate and present and protect data with effective and repeatable process frameworks. So what does this look like in terms of where the future of work stands? What are the actual numbers? What is really going to be going on here? So when we look at the latest release from the World Economic Forum, we're looking at the jobs landscape. And I know that this is a small print here on the screen, but that #1 emerging role in 2022 is data analysis and data science. And if we take a look at #2, it's artificial intelligence and machine learning. And then we look down at big data and we see new technology specialists and information technology services. So these are the roles, these are the jobs that are going to demand and fill 133 million roles globally. So this is not just specific to one continent or another. This is a global need. We see that shift of the economic impact of data, and we have to have a workforce that's going to respond to it. But how do we do that? How do we do that with the current environment that we have? Well, it's very similar to what we did and what we are still trying to do within cybersecurity. And cybersecurity is part of it because remember, we need to protect that data. We need to protect the systems around the data, and we need to make sure we don't have vulnerabilities. But we have to create this data-driven culture. So the way that we look at cyber hygiene is the same way we need to look at how we leverage, analyze, and extract and protect the value of data. And that's not just within our information technology field. If you take a look on the screen, so this is our portfolio, and you're probably saying, Megan, what are all of these different circles and bands within this data-driven culture? These are actually the CertNexus programs and certifications. And you'll notice some holes there because we recognize that there are other certifications and skills that can be built on by other organizations. But what we're trying to show here is that within an organization, you have to pay attention to everyone. You have to pay attention to every single employee that touches your data by making sure they understand how to secure it, that they're aware of how emerging technology like artificial intelligence and data science and IoT is being utilized so that they can better inform the people that they are working with and working for and managing in some cases, and be able to contribute to the greater good and help to extract that value from the data. So when we look at somebody that is a business professional, as we see here on the upper right-hand side of this circle here, we can say, yes, they need to understand cybersecurity here, but they also need to understand not only what emerging technology is, but they also need to understand the ethics of it, which is our data ethics for business professionals, as well as how to respond if there is an incident at a higher level. So as we look in here, and I can share this document out as part of our sharing here today. I'll provide a link as well. And what we're really looking at is, within an organization, you have all of these different roles. You have programmers, but are they writing secure code? Most of our coding that we do here today is done through open source, which is great. It's a wonderful community. It makes things go faster, which programmers are always making demands to go faster. But when we look at this, when we break down from a chart perspective, when you're trying to create a data-driven organization, you need people that are going to be lead ethically, that are going to be informed of what the emerging technologies are, and be able to identify data talent, right? So how do we build our workforce from within? And that's data leadership. When we talk about data collection, we're looking at not only securing data, but they're looking at things like Internet of Things. Are we collecting it from sensors? Are we securely collecting it? And then driving that value. So this is where many of our programs live in terms of where we think the future of work is going, in terms of how do we determine if a business case is appropriate for a data science project or for machine learning, and then applying those ethics along every single step of the way. And that data workforce is not as elusive as you think, and I know we want to make sure I leave time for questions, but it really is looking within and seeing if you have professionals that are willing to gain insights from those predictive models from data. They might already have some experience with computer technology. They might have some aptitude, and they may already have some of these in-demand skills or be willing to grow them. So this next slide is my absolute favorite because it really does help organizations understand, what do we have? So I have a statistician on staff, but really what they're doing is business analytics right now. And so they're living in this area of traditional analysis. I want to move them into data science or into machine learning. The only thing I need to add are these computing skills here. And so if I can get my statistician to learn some programming and then be able to apply some machine learning techniques, I can start to build that data science team. Likewise, I have somebody that is a programmer that really needs to up their industry and domain knowledge. Maybe that's years of experience. Maybe you have an internal program that can push them towards that way, and you start to apply some of the traditional software applications of BI, etc. in there. So when we talk about this in terms of our portfolio, and I'll wrap up with this, is just the idea that you want people in your organization that are thinkers. You need your leaders who are aware and understand at the high level of how to protect things and are responsible for, compliance and response when it comes to security. But you also need people who are builders, right? You need people who are going to be in there, hands-on with the technology. And then you also need people who are going to be securing that data as well. Whether it is more traditionally cybersecurity or looking at emerging tech of IoT. So emerging tech, this is really what we feel is the biggest growth opportunity in terms of expanding out your learning portfolio and identifying people within your organization